कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीर्वुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So, to begin this third prayer of the personified Vedas, Tadevam Bhagavattvena Brahmatvena cha Tvameva Tatparyabhidhanabhyam Sarva Nigamagochara Ityuktam. तात्पर्य अभिधानाभ्याम सर्व निगम गोचर इत्युक्तम। तदेवम, in this way, iti uktam, it was stated, tvam eva, that the Lord alone, bhagavatvena brahmatvena cha, either as Bhagavan or as Brahman. Gochara means accessible, is accessible through all the Vedas, sarva nigama gochara, both by their implicit meaning tatparya and by their direct meaning abhidhana. So direct meaning is abhidhana, implied meaning means little indirect meaning. So the Lord alone, either as Bhagavan or Brahman, is accessible through all the Vedas, both by the implicit and the implied meaning, the direct and implied meaning. Tacha yathartameva natu kalpanikam ityaguhu. It is real, not imaginary. In order to convey this, next prayer is quoted. You can repeat after me. इति तव सूरयस्त्रयधिपतेऽखिललोकमल
इति तव सूर्यस्त्रधिपतेऽखिललोकमल
क्षपणकथामृताब्धि मवगाह्य तपांसि जगुः।
क्षपणकथामृताभिमवगाह तपांसि जहुः।
किमुत पुनः स्वधाम विदुताशयकालगुणाः।
किमुत पुनः स्वधाम विधुताशयकालगुणाः।
परम भजन्ति ये पदमजस्र सुखानुभवम्।
परम भजन्ति ये पदमजस्रसुखानुभवम्।
So therefore, Trayadipate, Tri Adipate, Trayadipate, O Lord of the three. O Lord of the three, Surayah, the wise people. Avagahya means dive. They dive into what? Katamrita Abdi. They dive into the nectar ocean of your topics. And what is the nature of your Krishna Katha? Akhila Loka Malak Shapana, which destroys the contamination of all the worlds. Akhila Loka Malak Shapana. And then in this way, diving into those topics, Tapamsi Jahuhu, they give up all the ascetic practices. They give up all other tapasya. And then they again address the Lord by the word, O Supreme One, Parama, Parama Bhajanti, Parama, O Supreme One. Kimuta, Kimuta means here the Kaimutika Nyaya is used. What then to speak of those who Swadama Vidutashaya Kalagunaha? What then to speak of those who, in the light of their own essential being, in the light of their own essential being, have completely rid themselves of conditioned patterns of thought. I think Padam Ajasra Sukha Anubhavam, who in the light of their own essential being have completely rid themselves of conditioned patterns of thought. Conditioned patterns of thought, that is Vidutashaya, time and the gunas, and worship that aspect of you that is experienced as perpetual bliss. Ajasra Sukha Anubhavam. So Kimuta Punas Swadama Vidutashaya Kalaguna Parama Bhajanti Ye Padam Ajasra Sukha Anubhavam. So, O Supreme One, what then to speak of those who, in the light of their own essential being, have completely rid themselves of conditioned patterns of thought, time and the gunas, and worship that aspect of you that is experienced as perpetual bliss. Read the BBT translation also. Somebody can read the BBT translation. Yes.
Therefore, O Master of the three worlds, the wise get rid of all the misery by diving deep into the nectarian ocean of topics about you, which washes away all the contamination of the universe. Then, what to speak of those who, having by spiritual strength rid their minds of bad habits and freed themselves from time, are able to worship you, your true nature, O Supreme One, finding it within in uninterrupted bliss.
Okay. So let us understand the meaning more elaborately in this text. Bose Trayadipate. Bose Trayadipate. That means they are addressing the Lord as O presiding Lord of the three, O Master of three. What is the meaning? Trayanam Brahmadinam Patis Tattad Avatari Narayanakyah Purushas Tasyap Uparichara Swarupatvad Adipatir Bhagavan. The master of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva is the Purusha called Narayana, who is the source of all avatars. Patis Tattad Avatari, the source of all avatars, such as these Gunavataras. And you are Bhagavan, the overlord, because your essential nature is beyond even his. So the master of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva is Narayana, with the source of all the avatars. And Purushas Tasyap Uparichara Swarupatvat. And you are Bhagavan, because your essential nature is beyond even Narayana. Tasyapi Uparichara Swarupatvat Adipatir Bhagavan. So Trayadipate here refers to Bhagavan, who is superior even to Narayana, who is the master of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. And then Tato He Sarveshware. So therefore, O Supreme Controller, Yasmat Tvayeva Vedanam Tatparyam Abhidanam Cha Paryavasitam iti Ato Hetoreva Surayo Vivekinaha Paramparatvat Pratipadanamayam Veda Bhagamapi Parityajya Kevalam Tava Akhila Loka Malak Shapana Katamritabdim Sakala Loka Vrijina Nirasana Hetukirti Sudha Sindhum Avagakya Shraddaya Nishevya Tapapradanyena Tapakatvena Va Tapamsi Karmani Tani Jahus Chaktavantaha. So, saying that, therefore, O Supreme Controller, because the conclusion of the Vedas lies only in you. Vedanam Tatparyam Tvayi Eva. Because the conclusion of the Vedas lies only in you. Tatparya Abhidanam Cha. Through both direct and implicit statements. So therefore, Surayaha, the wise people means Vivekinaha, those who have awakened discrimination. Those who have awakened discrimination. Such people, Jahuhu, they forsake. Or Veda Bhagamapi Parityajya. They forsake even portion of the Vedas which describes you circuitously, that means indirectly, in a roundabout way. So, Paramparatva Pratipadanamayam Veda Bhagamapi Parityajya. So, they give up even that portion of the Vedas which describes you indirectly, in a roundabout manner. That means Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, etc. Kevalam Tava Akhila Loka Malak Shapana Katamritabde. Instead, they dive exclusively into the nectar ocean of your topics. Tava Akhila Loka. Akhila Loka Malak Shapana Katamritabde. And they faithfully relish only the ocean of your nectarian glories. Shraddaya, faithfully. Sakala Loka Vrijina Nirasana Hetukir. Sudha Sindhum Avagakya. They faithfully relish only the ocean of your nectarian glories, which are the cause of erasing the sins of all the worlds. Akila Loka Kshapana Katamritabdim, which are the cause of the cessation of the sins of all the world. That means Sakala Loka Vrijina Nirasana Hetukir Sudha Sindhum Avagakya. Shraddaya, they faithfully they hear only your direct topics, which glorify your direct Leela. And they give up the topics, those portions of the Vedas which glorify you indirectly. Because by the conclusion of the Vedas, it's only you. Therefore, they choose to give preference to hear and chant those topics which are directly glorifying you. And they avoid indirect glorification of you from the Veda. And then, Tapa Pradanyena Tapaketvena Va Tapamsi Karmani Tani Jahu. And they give up all the ascetic practices, which here refers to those duties in which suffering is prominent or which cause pain. Tapamsi karmani. Tapa pradanyena tapakatvena. They give up those duties in which suffering is prominent or which cause pain. Tesham sadhakanamapi yadi tatraivam tada kimuta vaktavyam. So tesham sadhakanamapi. That means even the sadhakas, even the practitioners, understanding that you are the goal of the Vedas, they give up those portions of the Vedas which describe you indirectly. Rather, they spend their full attention, they spend their full time in direct glorification of you, which destroys all the contamination of the world. And they give up all the ascetic practices. So, tesham sadhakanam api. Tesham sadhakanam api yadi tatraiva tada kimuta vaktavyam. If that is the case for the practitioners, then what can be said of those? What can be said of those who that is described as swadama vidutashaya kalagunaha? Swadama vidutashaya kalagunaha. That means Shuddha Atma Swarupa Spuranena Nirjita Mantakaranam Jaradi Hetuhu Kala Prabhavaha Satvadayo Gunarcha Yaiste Shuddha Atma Swarupa Spuranena Nirjita Mantakaranam Jaradi Hetuhu Kala Prabhavaha Satvadayo Gunarcha Yaiste Ye Punaha Tava Ajasra Sukhanubhava Swarupam Padam Brahmakyam Tattvam Bhajanti Te Tam Avagakya Tani Jahuriti. If that is the case for the practitioners, then what can be said of those who, in the light of their own essential being, have completely rid themselves of the conditioned patterns of thought. Shuddha Atma Swarupa Spuranena Nirjita Mantakaranam. Have completely rid themselves of the conditioned patterns of thought. And the conditioned patterns of thought, time, and the gunas. Conditioned patterns of thought, time, and the gunas. Nirjita Mantakaranam, Kala, and Gunaha. And who, through the manifestation of the true nature, as the pure self, have transcended identification with the quantum of mind. Ego and intelligence. Antakaranam, Nirjitam Antakaranam, Jaradi Hetuhu, Kala Prabhavaka Satvadayo Gunarcha Yaiste, and who have transcended, who have conquered the influence of time, which causes old age and so on. Jaradi Hetuhu. And who have become freed from the material gunas. Satvadayo Gunarcha, such as Sattva Guna. And furthermore, they worship that aspect of yourself that is experienced as perpetual bliss. Tava Ajasra Sukha Anubhava Swarupam. The Tattva called Brahman. Such persons also Tam Avagakya. Such persons also dive into the sweet ocean of Krishna's pastimes and give up the ascetic practices or works. Essentially, this verse describes that even the Atma Ramas, Brahman realized Jnanis, who have got rid of their false ego, who have gone beyond the three gunas, who have gone beyond the influence of time, even they get attracted to the topics of you. So the shloka essentially talks about, the first two lines talks about the practitioner. The practitioner, the intelligent people, understanding that you are the goal of the Vedas, they directly focus on your glories in the Vedas, your Krishna Katha in the Vedas, which destroys all the contamination of the world. And then what to speak of those people who are Brahman realized. Swadama Vidutashaya Kala Gunaha. That means that those people who, in the light of their own essential being, have completely rid themselves of the conditioned patterns of thought, time, and the gunas. That is who, through the manifestation of true nature, Shuddha Atma Swarupa Spuranena, as the pure self, have transcended identification with the mind, ego, and intelligence, and who have conquered time, old age, and so on, and who have become free from the material gunas. Even those people, that means who are Jivan Mukta, who are liberated. The third and fourth line talks about those who are liberated from the three gunas, who are liberated from the time factor. Even they also dive into your topics. Such persons also dive into the sweet version of your topics and give up the ascetic practices. So then,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Okay, one question. Can I ask now?
Yes.
Here it was said that one who gives up his duties, which is painful. So, Prabhu, in Bhagavad Gita 18.8, it is said that one who gives up his duties, thinking that it is painful and out of bodily discomfort, he that is giving up in illusion. So, how to understand this?
Yeah, that is Krishna speaks about renunciation and tamoguna. Dukkam ityeva yat karma kaya klesha bhayatyajet sakritva kaya klesha bhayatyajet. Yeah, that's a renunciation and tamoguna. Somebody or rajoguna, I think. Sakritva rajasam tyagam naiva tyaga phalam labhet. So here, this verse is speaking about, because of experiencing a superior taste in hearing and chanting direct Krishna Katha, they give up duties in which suffering is prominent or which cause pain, or they give ascetic practices. Basically, they give up basically Jnana Marga, Ashtanga Yoga Marga, which involves little difficult austerities. That is what this verse is saying.
So this is like mad chitta mad gata prana. So their prana and everything is now in Krishna's pastimes and all that.
Yeah, this verse says that because of focusing on direct Krishna Katha, they don't, they give up the practices of Jnana Marga and Ashtanga Yoga Marga, which involve dry tapasya, which involve little extreme tapasya. That is what it is like.
Yeah, understood, Prabhu. Thank you.
So then further he says, Kim Tarhi. Kim Tarhi. What does this imply? Brahma Matra Anubhava Nishtamapi Jagurityartaha. Brahma Matranubhava Nishtamapi Jagurityartaha. The purport is that they would also give up their exclusive fixation on the experience of Brahman. Brahma Matra Anubhava Nishtam Api Jahu. They would also give up their exclusive fixation on the experience of Brahman. Brahma Matra Anubhava Nishtam. That means, because of experiencing a superior taste in hearing and chanting, even those who are Jivan Mukta, those who are liberated in the impersonal Brahman, they give up their meditation on the impersonal Brahman. becoming attracted to the topics of Krishna. The third and fourth line essentially gives the same meaning. Atma Ramarcha Munayo Nirgranta Apyurukrame Kurvanti Ahetuki Bhakti Mittam Bhuta Gunohari. Same thing. First two line talks about the sadhakas who have developed a proper discrimination. They give up the topics of, they give up the practices of dry, intense tapasya because of diving into the deep topics of the Lord. So, etaduktam bhavati. Atra tavat trivida janaha. So, the following is to be said here. There are three types of men. Mugdha, the ignorant. Vivekinaha, the discriminating. And kritartascha iti, the accomplished people. That means the liberated people. Tatra sarvan evadikritya vedanam akalpana mayatvenaiva Bhagavan nirdeshakata drishyate. It is seen that in texts intended for all these three classes, different portions of the Vedas are meant for different classes of the people. The text intended for all three classes, that means Mugdha, Vivekana and Kritartha. In all three portions of the Vedas, text meant for the ignorant people, discriminating, and the accomplished people. In all three portions of the Vedas indicate that Bhagavan is not imaginary. Vedanam akalpana mayatvenaiva Bhagavan nirdeshakata drishyate. Whether the scriptures which are meant for the ignorant or for the vivekina or for the liberated people, in all three scriptures, it is described that Bhagavan is not imaginary. Tatahi yadi tatatvenaiva sa na drishyeta tada vastutas tat sambandha bhavad akila loka malakshapanattvena padapadartha jnanani hinanam mugdanam api yat papaharitvam vedantarvartinya bhagavat kathayaha prasiddham tanna syad asprushtanala loha dahakatavat. So, were it not so, tatahi. Were it not so, the narrations of Bhagavan, which are embedded in the Vedas, would be stripped of connection to a factual reality. The narrations of the Vedas, which are embedded in the Vedas, the narrations of Bhagavan, which are embedded in the Vedas, would be stripped of connection to a factual reality. If the Bhagavan, so there are three portions of the Vedas which are meant for the ignorant, discriminating, and the liberated. In all three portions of the Vedas, Bhagavan is not mentioned as imaginary. That means if the narrations of the Bhagavan, if the Bhagavan is mentioned as an imaginary thing, were it not so, the narrations of Bhagavan which are embedded in the Vedas would be stripped of connection to a factual reality. Tatahi yadi tatatvenaiva sana drishyeta tada vastutas tat sambandha abhavat akila loka mala kshapanattvena. As such, the celebrated power of these narrations to dispel the sins even of the ignorant, who have no knowledge of the words and their meaning. Padapadartha jnana hinanam, those who have no knowledge of the words and their meaning. Mugdanam api, that means ignorant people. Yat papa haritvam, So, the Bhagavan's name, qualities, and pastimes, the narrations about Bhagavan, they destroy the sin even of the ignorant people. Even of the ignorant people. What the shloka? Agyanat atava agyanat. Let's see, two shlokas. Agyanat atava agyanat uttama shloka namayat sankirtanamagam pumso dahe dedo yatanalah. As a fire burns dry grass to ashes, so the holy name of the Lord, whether chanted knowingly or unknowingly, burns to ashes. So there are some things in this world, only when you know it would have an effect. For example, you are sitting in a chair. And near your leg, there is a snake. There is a snake. So as long as you don't know that there is a snake is actually sleeping, say, just in a passive state. As long as you don't know that there is a snake, it will not create fear in you. Only when somebody tells, oh, there is a snake right below your chair. When somebody tells, the moment you get that knowledge, immediately there is a fear in your mind. So some things in this world, they have the effect only when you know something. But in the case of the fire, whether you knowingly touch the fire or unknowingly touch the fire, it will burn you. Similarly, the holy name, whether you know the glories of the holy name or not, it will have its effect. In this world, suppose when we are pronouncing some word, suppose if I pronounce the word Nadi, if I pronounce the two letters in a reverse manner, it will be meaningless. Dina. It will have a completely different thing actually. It will have a different meaning or no meaning only. In the case of the Vedic mantras, if you pronounce with a slight change, it can have a completely opposite result. Like Twashta chanted a mantra in order to get a son who can kill Indra, but with a slight change in the swara he pronounced, instead of getting a son who will kill Indra, he got a son who will be killed by Indra. But in the case of the Lord's holy name, Narada told Ratnakara to chant Ram, to chant the name of the Supreme Lord Ram. But Ratnakara was so used to chanting only Mara Mara. He said, I can't chant Ram only, I can chant only Mara only. So Narada Muni even approved that. So Ratnakara chanted, thinking of Ram, he chanted the name of Ram in a reverse manner. But still it had the effect, it purified him. It elevated him to the position of composing Ramayana. Ajamil chanted the name rightly in the proper sequence, Narayana. But he thought of his son Narayana. But still it had its effect. He was purified of the sins. So we see another shloka. Yatagadam viryatamam upayuktam yadrichaya ajanatopyatmagunam kuryan mantropyudakritah. If a person unaware of the potency of a medicine, if he takes that medicine, still the medicine will have the effect, whether the person has understanding of the medicine or not. Similarly, when a person knowingly or unknowingly chants the holy name, it will have its effect. Therefore, it is said that the narrations of the Bhagavan, were it not so, the narrations of Bhagavan which are embedded in the Vedas would be stripped of connection to a factual reality. As such, the celebrated power of narrations to dispel the sins even of the ignorant, who have no knowledge of the words and their meaning, would be false. Just as iron that is out of contact with fire has no ability to burn. So there are three types of men: the ignorant, the discriminating, and the accomplished. The text, it is seen that in texts intended for all three classes, the Vedas indicate that Bhagavan is not imaginary. So were it not so, that means if the Bhagavan is not imaginary, if the Bhagavan is imaginary, the narrations of Bhagavan which were embedded in the Vedas would be stripped of connection to a factual reality. As such, the celebrated power of these narrations to dispel the sins even of the ignorant, who have no knowledge of the words and their meaning, would be false. But we see that people who are ignorant, when they chant the names and glories of Krishna, they become purified. Further, he says that kimcha tasyaha kalpanamayatve sati vivekinastu na tatra pravarteran bandhyayaha suprajastva gunashravanavat pravartantam va tad aveshena swadharmam punar na त्यजेयुः raja yashaso gangatva shravanena tirtantara sevanavat. So, moreover, were these tales referring to an imaginary entity? Moreover, suppose that the topics of Krishna described in the scriptures, if they were to refer to an imaginary entity, then were these tales referring to an imaginary entity, then Vivekinah, the men of discrimination, na pravarteran, would take no stock in hearing them. The men of discrimination would not want to hear some imaginary stories. Just as they would not bother to hear of the good qualities of a barren lady's son. Bandhyayaha suprajastva gunashravanavat. Will somebody want to hear about the good qualities of a barren lady's son? Barren lady, how can she have a son? That means barren lady's son is an imaginary thing. Who will want to hear? So similarly, just like an intelligent person would not want to hear about the good qualities of a barren lady's son, similarly, intelligent people would not want to pay attention to the topics of Krishna if the topics of Krishna were imaginary. And even if they did somehow engage in hearing such tales, pravartantam va, they would never abandon their own religious duties. Tad aveshena swadharmam punar na त्यजेयुः. They would never abandon their own religious duties on their account, any more than one would abandon regular ritual service. One would abandon regular ritual service at other holy places simply upon hearing that the fame of their king has been equated to that of the Ganges. Will a person goes to the Ganges, and then will he abandon the rituals to be performed at the Ganges simply because of hearing through some rumor that the fame of the king is equal to that of the Ganges? Nobody will abandon that particular duty. Similarly, even the intelligent people, they would not take interest in the topics of Krishna if the topics of Krishna were imaginary. And moreover, even if they are imaginary, why would the intelligent people abandon the religious duties on being attracted by topics of Krishna? So,
Prabhuji, Hari
yes, sir.
Prabhuji, here can we understand that when Shaunaka rishis were asking Sutta Goswami that please describe all these things about planetary systems only if they are related to Krishna. Yeah, we not perfectly, but if anything is relationship to Krishna, they wanted to hear that.
Shaunaka Rishi told that please describe Parishit Maharaj punishing Kali. If the topic is related to Krishna, Yadi Krishna Katha they use the word.
Yes.
In one sense, everything is related to Krishna because everything in the Vedas, there is nothing unrelated to Krishna. But the devotees, they focus on topics which are directly related to Krishna. In some occasions, they may take indirect topics, but they personally want to spend their time those topics which are directly related to Krishna. So basically, Jiva Goswami is saying that the narrations of Bhagavan are not imaginary. If the narrations of Bhagavan are imaginary, then we see that even the ignorant people, unknowingly, when they hear and chant the glories of the Lord, they become purified. The example of Ajamil, etc. They are there in the Shastra. If the narrations of Bhagavan are imaginary, then these statements would become false. And if the narrations of Bhagavan are imaginary, why would the intelligent people take interest in some imaginary topics? And even if their topics are imaginary, why would the intelligent people taking interest in imaginary topics would abandon their own religious duties? And then further, apicha tata sati ye punar atmaramattvena paramakritarthaste tad anadarena tatkatam naiva vagaheran. And again, if this were the case, those who have become supremely accomplished by becoming self-realized Atmaramas would certainly not immerse themselves in such stories, discounting their own experience. Punar Atmaramatvena Paramakritarthasti tad anadarena tatkatam naiva avagaharen. If the Bhagavan's stories are imaginary, so the whole purpose of this anuccheda is what? The Vedic sound reveals Bhagavan. The Vedic sound actually points the glories of Bhagavan. But if somebody says if the glories of Bhagavan are imaginary, why would the intelligent people want to hear those topics? If the glories of Bhagavan are imaginary, then those statements which say that an ignorant person, when even unknowingly chant the glories of the Lord, he becomes purified. These statements would become false. If the glories of the Bhagavan are imaginary, why would the Atma Ramas take interest in hearing the topics of Krishna, giving up their Brahman realized state? Those who have become accomplished, supremely accomplished by becoming self-realized Atma Ramas would certainly not immerse themselves in such stories, discounting their own experience. Just as a person who is submerged in a pool of nectar would not leave it to swim in a river that has been merely attributed with superior qualities through hearsay. Somebody is already immersed in a pool of nectar. Why would such a person would leave that to swim in a river that has merely attributed with superior qualities through hearsay. Amrita Sarasim Avagada Aropita Tad Adhika Gunaka Nadivat. So further he says, Shruyatecha Tasya Tattat Gunakatvam Yata Vaishnave Hanti Kalusham Shotram Sa Yato Harihi Ityadau Atraiva Tvad Avagami Na Veti Ityadau. Now he is quoting references that the scriptures confirm that the Lord's Katha actually has all these characteristics. All these characteristics. First he quotes Vishnu Puran. Vishnu Puran states that upon entering the year, Lord Hari destroys one's sins. Lord Hari's Katha destroys one's sins. And in this very chapter of the Bhagavatam, that means the same personified Vedas prayers, another verse is quoted. The 40th shloka. What is the 40th shloka? The 40th shloka is that Tvad avagami na vetti bhavadutta shubha shubhayor guna vigunanvayam starhi deha brutam cha giraha anuyugam anvaham sa guna gita paramparaya shravana bruto yatastvam apavarga gatir manujaihi. So you can read this in this very chapter of the Bhagavatam. It is said,
in this very chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, one who knows you no longer feels the influence of good and bad results arising from past pious and sinful acts, since they are meted out by you. Such a realized devotee also disregards the Vedic commandments meant for those still caught in identification with the with the body mind, those who every day fill their ears with your glories, which are recited in every age through an unbroken tradition, attain you, the personification of salvation. And in the first canto,
yeah. So one who
and in
knows
the
you no longer feels the influence of good and bad results arising from pious and sinful acts, since they are meted out by you. Such a realized devotee disregards the Vedic commandments meant for those still caught in the identification of the body and mind. That means if a person is still identifying with the body and mind, one has to perform the Vedic duties. A person who has gone beyond the identification of body and mind, he can give up those varnashram duties because of being absorbed in Krishna Katha. So those who every day fill their ears with your glories, which are recited in every age through an unbroken tradition, attain you the personification of salvation. So in the first canto it is said, Harer guna kshiptamatir Bhagavan bhadarayanihi adyagan mahadakhyanam nityam vishnujana priyah. The Venerable Shukadeva, the son of Srila Vyasadeva, and ever beloved of the devotees of Vishnu, his mind having been contaminated by Sri Hari's attributes, mind having been captivated by Sri Hari's attributes, studied this great narration every day. So three kinds of people, or that means ignorant people, discriminating people, and who are liberated. All three people are attracted to Bhagavan's narrations. So for ignorant people, he quoted the Vishnu Puran shloka, how the Bhagavan's narration destroy the sins. But how the Vivekina, discriminating people, they are also interested in Krishna Katha. For that he quoted 10.87.40. And then how the liberated people are attracted to Krishna Katha, further decoded 1.7.11. Then further he says, Tasmad gunanam gunadi pratipadaka vedanam cha bhagavata sambandha swabhavika eva sarvateti siddham. So therefore it has been proven that both the Lord's attributes and the Vedas that propound them, gunadi pratipadaka vedanam cha, both the Lord's attributes and the Vedas that propound them have an eternal, natural relationship with Bhagavan. The qualities of Bhagavan as a eternal relationship with Bhagavan. And the Vedas that describe the qualities of Bhagavan, they also have an eternal relationship with Bhagavan. Gunanam gunadi pratipadaka vedanam cha Bhagavata sambandha swabhavika eva. There is a natural relation. And this natural relation is an eternal relation. Sarvata iti siddham. And then he quotes many statements, some pramanas. Atra shrutayah Om asya jananta ityadyaha yata pushkara palashamapo na shilshyanti evamevam vidan papam karmana shlishyati. First is Rigveda. There are a number of Vedic statements confirming this. O Shri Vishnu, your name is conscious and illuminating. Second quotation is Chandogya Upanishad. Just as water does not adhere to a lotus leaf, a sinful act cannot bind one who knows the Lord. Papam karma na shlishyati. And then Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Na karma na lipyate papakena. He is not affected by sinful acts. And then from Kaushitaki Upanishad. Tat sukruta dushkrute vidunute. Kaushitaki Upanishad. Transcendental knowledge makes him free from the reactions of both pious and sinful acts. Tat sukruta dushkrute vidunute. Transcendental knowledge makes him free from the reactions of both pious and sinful acts. And then again Taittiriya Upanishad. Evam ha vava na tapati kimaham sadhu nakaravam kimaham papam akaravam ityadyaha. He is never distressed as to what should be done and what should not be done. And then Sauparna Shruti Mukta Hyena Upasata. Liberated beings worship him, and so on. Ityadyarcha. And then finally, Evam Anyepi Shloka Upasanadi Vakyanam Bhagavat Parata Darshaka Yatayatam Yojayitavya Ityabhipretya Nodriyante. Similarly, other statements dealing specifically with the topic of worship, Upasanadi Vakyanam, are necessarily to be applied in the rightful sense as signifiers of the superiority of Bhagavan. As signifiers of the superiority of Bhagavan. With this in mind, since it is already a given that such verses concern Bhagavan, I am not quoting such verses here. Ityabhipretya nodriyante. So, this is the end of this part of the Anuccheda. I'll read the commentary. The sole purpose of the Vedas is to glorify Bhagavan. Such glories are not imaginary, as the Shrutis confirm in the main verse of the section. Were they imaginary, the words of the Vedas would not have the power to purify anyone. Imaginary word will not have the power to purify anybody. But it is seen that even ignorant people get purified by hearing the Lord's pastimes. Ajamil got purified. People of discrimination who study and adhere to the Vedas know them to be real and give up their mundane duties to engage in the service of the Lord after hearing of his glories. There's a beautiful shloka in the Brahmara Gita. What is that shloka? Brahmar Gita. Yad anucharita leela karna piyusha viprut sakrit adana viduta dvandva dharma vinashtaha sapadi griha kutumbam dina mutsrujya dina bhagava iha vihanga bhikshucharyam charanti. To hear about the pastimes that Krishna regularly performs is nectar for the ears. For those who relish just a single drop of that nectar, even once, their dedication to material duality is ruined. Many such persons have suddenly given up their wretched homes and families, and themselves becoming wretched, traveled here to Vrindavan to wander about like a birds, begging for their living. So therefore, people of discrimination who study and adhere to the Vedas know those topics of Krishna, topics of Bhagavan to be real, give up their mundane duties to engage in the service of the Lord after hearing of his glories. This would not happen if those topics of Bhagavan were imaginary. Because no sane man would attempt to bathe in the fame of a king upon hearing that it is as pure as the Ganges. Moreover, self-satisfied. So this would not happen if they were imaginary, just as no sane man would attempt to bathe in the fame of a king upon hearing that it is as pure as the Ganges. Moreover, self-satisfied and liberated sages would never take to hearing the Lord's pastimes if they were imaginary. This would be like renouncing an empire for a non-existent hut that someone has glorified in a novel somewhere. So authoritative scriptures offer ample proof that the Lord's name and qualities purify whoever comes in contact with them. And their narrations captivate even self-realized beings. So Jiva Goswami quoted 3 verses, Vishnu Puran Shloka and 10.87 Vishnu Puran Shloka for how the Lord's glories purify even the ignorant. 10.87.40 how the discriminating people are attracted to Lord's glories. And then even the liberated people, 1.7.11. As examples of these 3 types of people, the ignorant, the discriminating, and the accomplished, respectively. Krishna is all attractive. Krishna Katha is all attractive. Krishna Katha is attractive to the ignorant, discriminating, and to the accomplished people. So I'll just go through some part of the next, next to this one. But next week we can complete this anuccheda. So then, now there is an objection which is raised. Nanu tarhi bhavan mate shabda nirdeshyatve prakritattvameva tatra patati. Objection is raised. So according to your doctrine, since the Lord can be described by the words shabda nirdeshyatve, does it not make him material? Prakritattvameva tatra patati. This is the first objection. And then one more objection. Kimcha shrutibirapi yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha avachane naiva provacha yadvachan abhyuditam yena vag abhyudyate yat shrotram na shrunoti yena shrotram idam shrutam Ityadau, he is giving 4 quotations from the Shruti. Kena Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, etc. Ityadau, Shabda Nirdeshyatvam tasya nishidyata it ashankayam uchyate. Now he is raising 2 objections. One objection is that, according to your doctrine, since the Lord can be described by the words, does that not make him material? Does that not make him material? This is the first objection. Moreover, there are Shrutis. They themselves also deny that he can be defined by the words in statements like, words along with the mind turn away, being unable to attain him. Taittiriya Upanishad. And he spoke yet without words. Avachane naiva provacha. And then the truth is not revealed by speech. Yad vacha anabhyuditam. Truth is not revealed by the speech, but it makes speech possible. Fourth quotation. The absolute is that which the ear cannot hear, but because of which the ear is able to hear. In this way, he is posing this doubt. If the Lord can be described by the words, then that Bhagavan must be material. And moreover, there are many statements in the Shrutis which say that Lord cannot be described by the words. So then he is giving a reasoning further. Yata sakshan nirdeshyatve doshastata lakshyatvepi katam nasyat. Ubayatrapi shabdavritti vishayatvena avisheshat. Yata sakshan nirdeshyatve doshastata lakshyatvepi katam nasyat. If it is considered a defect that Brahman can be directly expressed with the words, then 1 minute. Courier. Yeah. If it is considered a defect that Brahman can be directly expressed with the words, then how would it not also be a defect if it could be indirectly expressed? If the Brahman can be directly expressed, if it is a defect, then how would it not also be a defect if it could be indirectly expressed? Because Advaitavadis say that Brahman cannot be directly expressed by the words. But then they try to describe the word Brahman indirectly. So Jiva Goswami is saying that if Brahman cannot be described by the words directly, then Brahman should also not be described even indirectly. Would it also not be a defect if it could be indirectly expressed? There is no difference. Ubayatrapi shabdavritti vishayatvena avishesha. Since in both cases, Brahman would be the object of the meaning of the words, shabdavritti. Kimchana tasya prakritavat sakshan nirdeshyatvam kint anirdeshyatvenaiva tata nirdeshyatvam iti siddhantyate. Moreover, Brahman may not be directly expressible in words like a material object. May not be directly expressible in words like a material object. But it may be concluded that is expressible only by statements that point out its inexpressibility, that is specifying what it is not, the truth of what it is gradually emerges. Kim chana tasya prakritavat sakshan nirdeshyatvam kint anirdeshyatvenaiva tata nirdeshyatvam iti siddhantyate. Moreover, Brahman may not be directly expressible in words like a material object, but it may be concluded that it is expressible only by statements that point out its inexpressibility. So with this, so in this regard, he is quoting another prayer of the personified Vedas. Tataiva hi tasam mahavakyopa samharaha. With this intent, the Shrutis offer their concluding statement. This is the fourth quotation, the last quotation of the personified Vedas in this Anuccheda. So this is the concluding prayer of the personified Vedas. 10.87.41 is a concluding prayer, 28th prayer. You can repeat after me. Dupataya yevatena yayurantamanantataya.
Dupataya evatena yayur-antamanantaya.
Tvamapi yadantaranta nichaya nanu savaranaha.
Twamapi yad anantarana nichaya nau savarana.
Kha eva rajamsi vanti vayasa sakayat shrutayas
Kha eva rajamsi vanti vayasa sahayacha achyutayasa.
Tvaihi palan Tvaihi palant atannirasanena bhavan nidhanaha.
Tvaihi falan yatan nisrasanen bhavatridhana.
Prabhuji, in the third line, the last word, what is that arrow down? I mean, that pointer down doing? That shoe,
Shru,
between.
actually, shru.
Okay, okay. Shru.
Refa is there actually.
Okay.
Like kra,
Acha.
like
Okay.
prakriti,
Okay.
that shru.
Shru.
So here they are saying that because you are without end or limit, the cosmic administrator such as Brahma simply cannot find any limit to you. Moreover, even you cannot do so. Under the influence of time, the countless universes, each enveloped in its own seven-layered covering, float contemporaneously. That means during the same period. Contemporary, we say, na? Contemporary. So during the same period of time, float contemporaneously within you, like particles of dust in the sky. For this reason, we Shrutis, whose final conclusion is in you alone, become successful by revealing you indirectly through the method of negating everything that is not you. So, we will continue this next week actually. Let us see next week if we can complete this Anuccheda. Hare Krishna. Anybody has any questions? Please.
Thank you, Prabhu, for taking us through all these things. Because there is no such course available, but thank you. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Because of all of you, I'm able to study, to go deep into this Shastra. I'm also thankful to all of you. We are coming almost towards the end of the Bhagavat Sandarbha. The 98th anuccheda, if it gets over, then we have 4 more anucchedas. 99, 100, 99 to 102. Let us see. Hold on.
Prabhuji, there are 6 Sandarbhas and we are going through, this is the second one, no?
Second one. Paramatma Sandarbha is little shorter, but philosophically very intense. Even more intense, maybe some sections as compared to Bhagavat Sandarbha. Krishna Sandarbha and is quite long. Bhakti Sandarbha is the longest. And then Preeti Sandarbha.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. ग्रंथरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्त की जय।
जय
हरे कृष्ण।